Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Phillips on the piano. Thank you very much, Rob. Great job. Well, wow, what a fantastic turnout tonight, and I can tell you on behalf of all of us associated with the Hospital for Sick Children, we are just absolutely delighted to be in Peterborough to celebrate this great event. And I can tell you, it was actually quite a relief getting out of Toronto, given all of the mayhem that's been going on recently. This is actually a nice sort of journey away from everything. Good evening, my name is Ted Gerard. I'm the President and CEO of SickKids Foundation, and together with some of my colleagues, who I'll introduce in a little while, we are here to celebrate the amazing work that has been done by the Birrell family and the James Fund to raise funds and awareness and create family support for neuroblastoma. It is a pleasure to also welcome Dr. Sylvain Birrell and Dr. David Kaplan from SickKids, who are here with me today, and I will introduce them more formally tonight. And of course to the Birrell family, to Sid, to Pam, to Diana. Listen, you're going to get lots of applause tonight, but I'm going to start it off by just saying thank you so much. You know, without these team of incredible individuals and the support that the Peterborough community has provided, we would not be together to recognize the achievements of the James Fund. The James Fund, as you know, was established by Sid and Pam, James' parents, as a grassroots initiative to help their son who had been diagnosed with neuroblastoma. And having noticed the very limited amount of research in neuroblastoma, the Birrell family wanted to make a difference in the lives of those who would battle the same condition that James did, and truly, what a difference they have made. Shortly after the James Fund was established, James' Aunt Diana was recruited to help lead the charge around raising funds and awareness for neuroblastoma research, not only here in this community, but in communities across Ontario, across the country, and indeed around the world. I was asked earlier tonight, when did I first meet Sid? And I started my job in July of 2009. It was not much longer after that Sid phoned me up and said, I've got a room at the Delta Hotel and I'd like you to come down and meet with me, just mano a mano. I wondered, what was this all about? But what he really wanted to do was to actually have some very quality time with me for me to understand the passion that lay behind the James Fund, why he was personally committed to the cause, what the James Fund has achieved over the many years. And I saw through that meeting a man that I wanted to stay associated with, and an organization, the James Fund, that the SickKids needed to continue to be involved with because of the great work that it was doing. So, Sid, thank you for taking that initiative over 4 years ago and for continuing this fantastic journey that we've been on. And I'm delighted tonight to say that all of this work has now resulted in cumulative giving to support neuroblastoma research of over $5 million. How fantastic is that? And if $5 million wasn't enough, the great thing is that that $5 million has also leveraged another $7.7 million in additional support from different granting agencies, different donors, and other forms of support. So really, that is an outstanding ROI, $5 million that in turn has generated over $12 million in total support. And these funds really have had tremendous impact. And I'm going to throw out a few stats in terms of what has been accomplished. Funding 25 one-year fellowship positions, 31 peer-reviewed papers in top medical journals, 25 studies. In the past 5 years, a number of new drugs and combinations of drugs have been tested to help treat children's cancer. The James Fund was the diamond sponsor of the Global Advances in Neuroblastoma Research Conference in Toronto in 2012, where 500 people from all around the world came to talk about how we can continue to make advances against this disease. And James Fund was right there to be able to support it. They've created the James Fund Neuroblastoma Family Retreat, a safe place where families can come together to share information, learn about research and treatment, and to cope. And I think that is another tremendous legacy that the fund has had. Beyond the raising of the money, it's the support to other families who are going through the same thing. And the care and the compassion and the humanity that's created as a result of your own experiences and giving guidance to people who perhaps just don't know where to turn. That has been an outstanding legacy. And really, the list of your accomplishment goes on, and I know we'll hear about some of them later on. Over the years, the Birrell family has become very close friends with SickKids, working closely with Dr. Kaplan and Dr. Birrell. And you'll hear from both of them shortly, who can tell you a bit more about that work. The James Fund has become the largest umbrella organization for neuroblastoma families in Canada, and with a reach extending all around the globe. Again, a phenomenal result. The reach that this has generated is recognized around the world too, including from celebrities, and you've probably seen some of the pictures and certainly on the posters here that, well, not this one, but you know, the patron the patron of the James Fund, I mean, extraordinarily, is Tom Hanks. He was a legend in James's eyes. Apollo 13 was James's favorite movie, and good on you for getting Tom engaged in this initiative as well, because he's become a great champion for the work that you do. I guess for many of you who are skeptical as to whether or not the kind of support that is provided to make a difference in, you know, the lives of children, I just think it's, you know, a good thing to reflect that, you know, 3 decades ago, 1 in 4 children who was diagnosed with cancer survived their cancer. Today, over 8 in 10 children who are diagnosed with cancer survive and completely survive their cancer. And that is yes, I think that's fantastic too. But that would not happen were it not for the support of our communities, through the James Fund and through many other donors who want to support the kind of leading edge research and clinical care and clinical trials that we do at the Hospital for Sick Children. And I know with the continued support of Sid and Pam and Diana and all of you in the room and our extended family at SickKids, we're going to get ever closer to finding that cure. Well, tonight I'm pleased to introduce somebody who probably needs no introduction to you, but it is a pleasure to introduce your mayor, David Bennett. Prior to his election in October 2010, Mayor Bennett had a strong presence in the Peterborough community, serving as a board member and chair of the Community Futures Development Corporation, and also a member of the Board of Governors of Trent University. It is a great pleasure to welcome Mayor Bennett, because I know he's been a big supporter of the James Fund, and I hope you join me in welcoming right now, Mayor Bennett.
I am getting used to that. That's my son, whose name is David. But I consider that a complete compliment, seeing that he's 25 years younger than me, approximately. And Ted, you mentioned about some mayhem in Toronto. Was there a storm I missed? I don't think you've seen anything yet. Certainly, of all the responsibilities that fall to the mayor of the city of Peterborough, these type of affairs have to be the most rewarding. We're here this evening to recognize some truly wonderful people who have reached a remarkable goal and who have demonstrated through that process outstanding citizenship based on determination, generosity, and spirit. Since James's death, James has reminded us more than he could have ever imagined. And we have his wonderful family and friends to thank for that, for the way he's touched many, many lives. In times like these, it takes a moment for us to remind ourselves that in death there is rebirth. In this case, the rebirth of the passion that drives fundraising for research and action on children's cancer. Sid and Pam and Diane are pioneers in research for childhood cancers in Canada, and heroes in the eyes of all those who have come to know them. Their legacy includes a remarkable list of accomplishments, more than any family might be expected to accomplish. To borrow from the words of author Dr. Stephen Maraboli, words that exemplify the attitude of the Birrells, Sid, Pam, and Diane, when there is darkness, dare to be the first to shine a light. When there is injustice, dare to be the first to condemn it. When something seems difficult, dare to do it anyway. When life seems to beat you down, dare to fight back. When there seems to be no hope, dare to find some. When times are tough, dare to be tougher. When someone is hurting, dare to help them heal. When another is lost, dare to help them find their way. When a friend falls, dare to be the first to extend a hand. When a new day begins, dare to smile gratefully. When the day has ended, dare to feel that you've done your best. Without doubt, our friends, the Birrells, have done more than their best. On behalf of your community, we thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett, and my apologies. I'm still in denial that I need reading glasses, so they're going on now. That was the problem. It is now a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Sylvain Birrell. Sylvain was recruited to SickKids in 1996, and he is currently a member of the solid tumor section in the Division of Hematology and Oncology, as well as a director of the New Agent and Innovative Therapy Program. Dr. Birrell is chair of the Canadian Pediatric Experimental Therapeutic Group and represents Canada on several international committees focused on neuroblastoma research. Sylvain, in collaboration with Sid and Pam, initiated the James Birrell Fund at the Hospital for Sick Children over 10 years ago. So please, would you join me in welcoming Dr. Sylvain Birrell.
Good evening. I don't see Sid and Pam, the light. Oh yeah, yes. So, who remember March 19, 2001, St. Mary's Baptist Church? You see, people were there. So that was 12 years ago. A small community decided to get together to raise awareness, fundraising for neuroblastoma, a very severe cancer, and James was suffering from neuroblastoma. And I think I will never forget, ever, that evening. Not because it was a fundraising event, but because it was started by James when he was well enough to welcome me to the podium and say, please welcome my friend, Dr. Sylvain Birrell. Doesn't happen very often when an 8-year-old child start a project, a program, and welcome you. And James was very, very curious. He always wanted to understand why, how, what type of drug are you going to give me that could make me better and continue to fight. And this message is still present today. And that's why the James Fund is alive, thriving, and one of the most powerful organizations that I've ever met in my life. So what have we accomplished 12 years after? $5 million plus more leverage, few labs, research, trainees. I'm going to give you a few examples what we learned from James. First of all, never give up. Continue to fight. Second, always try to understand what could be best for the child and discover a new drug that could step by step bring you to 100% cure. So everything starts with $30,000 invested in research in what we call SID grants, and David will talk more about that. And these $30,000 became $5 million. But it's not about all the money. What you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. I want to give you some example of where we are today. Just give you an example. I'm just back from an international meeting in Paris, came back yesterday, called the International Early Phase Development Drug Trials, where people from Europe, Canada, Australia, US are meeting to discuss new drug trials. And this year, thanks to fund raised by the GEMS Fund, we're going to launch an international clinical trial in 14 centers across the globe, 6 countries in Europe, and 8 cities in Canada. This is the first international clinical trial that will be mainly funded by philanthropic money and in a large amount by the GEMS Fund. And this is quite incredible, to the point that I met in Paris a family. The mother just lost her child of a brain tumor, and she started a foundation called Imagine for Margot, and she was asking me, how do you do that in Canada? How can you be so successful? And my only response was, think about James' story. Go and visit the James Birrell website, and you're going to learn a lot. So that international study is the result of the last 10 years of work. So it's not about only money. It's about family, about compassion, about being in touch after all these years, transforming a disaster in a positive energy. And I think this is a message that we need to bring to every disease, not only cancer, but every disease. You can do a lot if you stay close to the community and keep in touch with those that you cherish. I will never forget James. James would be today 20 years old, and I'm sure he would say thank you, and I would say, my friend James, I'm happy that you're still with us. Thank you very much.
Another key partner on the medical team is Dr. David Kaplan. David joined SickKids in 2002 and became a senior scientist and the head of cancer research at the Hospital for Sick Children. He is also a professor in the Department of Molecular Genetics at the University of Toronto. David holds the Canada Research Chair in Cancer and Neuroscience, and his laboratory focuses on developing new therapies for childhood cancers, kids' brain injuries, and adult conditions such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. David was awarded a top globally recognized Neuroblastoma Research Award in Japan in 2008 and has been highly creative in using James Fund donations to strategically leverage additional funds. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Kaplan.
So thank you, Ted, and thank you, Mayor, and you're welcome to be Mayor of Toronto anytime, I'm sure. So I'd like to thank, especially on behalf of the researchers of the James Fund, and there are 25 researchers now from all over the world, Sid, Pam, and Diana, for their passion and time and effort they put into raising funds for neuroblastoma research. And I'd also like to thank all of the other parents who helped contribute to the fund, because all of those parents, as well as the Birrells, have bought into the vision and goal of the neuroblastoma researchers at SickKids, which is to never lose another child to cancer again. So how did the James Fund really begin in terms of research? And this was all due to Sid's vision. So Sid would call me up and go, here's a cancer, and neuroblastoma is one of the 3 big kids' cancers. There's leukemia and brain tumors and neuroblastoma. Neuroblastoma is the major cancer of infants and one of the most deadliest cancers. Ted talked about leukemia, where we can start to talk about in kids cures. Medulloblastoma is one where almost all children used to die and now 70% live. With neuroblastoma, we're still at about the 40% survival rate. So this is the cancer we really need work, effort, and funding and researchers in. So what Sid asked is, how come that's so? How come we're at 40%? And so neuroblastoma is a particularly tough cancer. It's very aggressive. It goes all over the body. It spreads, and it spreads and is much more aggressive than almost any adult cancer. And we really have no answer for many of the children who get it. And one of the problems is that a lot of the drugs we use in kids come from the adult world. And when we get cancer as adults, sometimes it's our genes, other times it's bad behavior, we smoke, or we eat Twinkies, or we do things that we shouldn't do. But in kids, it's random and something that happens when they develop. So what we really need to do is to develop new ways of thinking, because for 30 years now, we haven't really made a lot of headway with neuroblastoma. And so with Sid, what he felt was, we need new ideas. Let's fund high-risk, high-reward research. It doesn't matter if we fund 10 or 20 projects, maybe one of those will work. That's not how research is funded in our country. Usually we fund everybody and hope for incremental findings. But for Sid, it's can we find something that'll work, and let's just put money into new ideas. Have all these people and all our smart students sit around and come up with a new idea, and let's fund them and let them go to town on it. And so that's been our goal and how we actually work in the James Fund, very high risk. And often that risk in our case has paid off. So with ideas from our laboratory, as Sylvain mentioned, we have 4 clinical trials that have either been completed or in the initial stages right now of starting. And that's a huge accomplishment for this group in Canada. And what our hope is that we can actually do things that big companies can't, where it costs $1 billion in 10 years to get a drug to kids. We think we can do this very rapidly for $1 million or a few dollars. So that's still a lot of money, but we think we can do much better in being sort of a little drug company at SickKids. So with your help, we've actually been able to do that. But the other thing that the Birrells and Sid have tried to do is to generate all sorts of other new and interesting ways of funding research. So Sid would call me up having dinner with the head of research for the Canadian government or a donor, and he'll pretend to go to the bathroom and call me and go, I need an idea really quickly, because I have this guy on the hook. He's just eating dessert and he's really happy, and if I can just give him an idea now. And we'll say, well, why don't we fund the first scientist, to do work between Cornell Medical School and SickKids in Toronto. No one's ever done a cross-border thing. And Sid will go back and talk to someone, and all of a sudden it happened. We have the first person to work between a big kids center in New York City and Toronto to try to share ideas. Or let's see if we can get researchers to work between SickKids and all the other centers in Canada. So all of a sudden the James Fund is funding collaborative projects between University of Winnipeg, University of Calgary Children's Hospital, Ottawa Children's Hospital, Children's Hospital in Vancouver, that are now working with SickKids researchers. And this would never have happened without the James Fund and Sid going, I need an idea right now. And those things worked. We now have a team that transcends all of Canada who comes up with new ideas, and those ideas are starting to work. We're starting to think that we can really make headway against a very deadly cancer. So the other people I want to thank is all the people of Peterborough. So I come from New York City, and it's quite different than the town of Peterborough, and I've noticed why. So my first visit here is when Peter Jackson donated the Lord of the Rings movie about a month before it came out in honor of James, and there was a benefit here, and the whole town came out dressed as Lord of the Rings characters, and a kid came up to me and tried to give me his paper route money, and I'm not used to New York City people take money from you, they don't really give you money. So, but these are the types of things that can only really happen here in a small town where everybody gathers around a very worthy cause. And that's really been the catalyst in people in the country, whether there's benefits in Ottawa or in Calgary and runs that are in honor of James to do research and to do neuroblastoma research. And that's something that we really have to thank the Birrells and the town of Peterborough for. So really thank you on behalf of all the researchers of the James Fund.
Thank you very much, David. And, I just want to underscore that $5 million in the scope of what SickKids is able to garner from community is truly fantastic. There are very few donors who have contributed $5 million cumulatively, and so this really is a magnificent achievement. The second thing I just want to say is that many grateful patients and their families who get involved in fundraising for SickKids often sort of peter out after a little while. But it has been a testament to the perseverance of the Birrells and the James Fund that you're still going strong. And I know that there have been moments when you've questioned that, but the point is you've kept at it. And that has allowed David and Sylvain and all of their colleagues to continue to make such tremendous advances. And while, David, you properly acknowledged all of the support in the room, the support of the community, all of the volunteers who've been involved in supporting the James Fund, it also takes a visionary, and it also takes somebody who's prepared to step up and show leadership. And that is, of course, Sid and Pam, Diana, and I think, Sid, you're going to speak on behalf of the family, so please join us right now. Thank you, Sid.
This is a unique experience for me, for Diana, for Pamela. It's not our event. We're so used to working hard and pulling it all together. And this is not our doing. I am very grateful to Ted, to Ryan Bailey and Sydney Clark, who've worked with their department to create an event that all we have to do is show up. It's a wonderful sensation, and I want to thank SickKids Foundation for honoring us in this way, for honoring the donors, the supporters of the James Fund. So thank you so much, Ted. It was late one night at SickKids, and another one of those nights that many parents know too well, where sleep once again is impossible. You're moving from one medical crisis to another, and in a dazed, sleepless way I was stumbling along a hallway, and I met an oncologist. I wish I knew who it was. I can't remember. But we got yakking, and it was such a late hour, I think some barriers went down. And this oncologist said to me, you know, the thing about neuroblastoma is we just need to spend some money. Look at childhood leukemia. 10 years ago, 85% of the kids died. Threw a ton of money at it, and a decade later, 85% of the kids survived. I'm now 12 years further on from that conversation, and I understand it's more like 95% of childhood leukemia survive. And this oncologist just said, we got to do that for neuroblastoma. So that was the germ of an idea that we acted on, and possibly we acted on it within sort of maybe 2 days, or as you say, go to the bathroom and make a phone call. But I do know that in our naivety, Pam and I felt that perhaps we could stimulate some research and find a cure in time for James. In fact, James had been enrolled in a trial, anti-angio, whatever, say it, yeah. And that trial, James was on, and he did really rather well, and just at the point where we thought we were winning, and it stopped working, neuroblastoma found a way around. So we had seen that something perhaps could be effective for this rapidly changing, this elusive cancer, childhood cancer. And we held a hope that something might be found in time for James. And again, in our simplicity, we just said, okay, everybody, please come to our church on whatever it was, Sunday, Tuesday night, and bring your checkbooks. And that was pretty simple, really. We're going to start the James Fund. And I believe that evening we came away with $30,000, went down to SickKids, and well, they got to work, and you've heard a good chunk of that. So Pam and I, looking back on all this now, we're puzzled, we're astonished, we don't understand how has this happened, what is it that has enabled this little fund that we started to make such a difference. You've heard the list of papers published, breakthroughs, new understandings in the field of neuroblastoma research. And that means even more to me than the magnificent achievement of $5 million. And we hope that we'll be able to continue to do this, to continue to find the strength and the support from our friends, from our community, to make this happen. My kids would like to be here today, Rebecca and Ben, but are not able to be here. I remember Rebecca, when we had a discussion about perhaps it's time to wind it up, she just looked at us and said, "You can't quit, you haven't got a cure." That's what they do in the States, they just give up. Now, I have no idea why she'd got the idea that in the States they give up. Sorry, David, born in the States. But the message of her, that was some time ago, and it kind of stuck with me. How can you give up now? You're not there yet. You haven't found a cure. So we hope to be able to continue and to find new ways of engaging, to match up donors with specific research projects, and to continue the work. For our family, I guess one of the thrilling aspects of being involved in philanthropy is it's a pre-select. People who give money are passionate people. They care. In this new world that Pamela and I find ourselves, one child missing, a permanent state of trying to find meaning in life, to recover from this loss, to live in a world that's empty of one of your children. It is wonderfully, wonderfully helpful to rub shoulders with people who are full of passion. And in this world of philanthropy, that's the kind of people we meet. Every person in this room is an exceptional person who cares more than your average person. And the journey without James, unimaginable, impossible, has been greatly lightened by having a host of very passionate people, from scientists to those who work at SickKids Foundation, to our donors. It's an extraordinary experience to be surrounded by so many profoundly worthwhile people. So I'm going to wind this up with 10 thank yous. 10 thank yous. Getting a list of thank yous together is a very treacherous. You're going to miss someone. It should mean 11 or 13 or 26 or 144 or something like that. But I've kept it to 10. So my thank yous. To the researchers, the clinician scientists at SickKids and around the world for their willingness to tackle this orphan disease, I give thanks. Kids' cancer is not a good career choice. A good career choice, if you're that kind of researcher, is breast, colon, prostate, the ones where lots of money is coming in. I really appreciate scientists who spend time on a kid's disease. Thank you, Sylvain, David, and the team. I thank SickKids for believing in us. I thank the foundation for supporting us, for reaching out to us, for guiding us. I learned so much from these very gifted and dedicated folk who worked at the foundation. They never knew when Sid would just phone up and say, I got this idea. And looking back on it, they had so much patience and always had so much encouragement. And I got to admit, it's kind of fun when they get there's a $10,000 donation arrived from the States, from the TNR Foundation. And they're all wondering, who the heck is this? Who is this, the TNR Foundation? It's just come to SickKids, and they're wondering. And then someone says, oh, when it's bizarre like that, it must be something to do with the James Fund. And Sid, would TNR Family Trust mean anything to you? And it actually did. It meant Tom and Rita. Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson. So the thing worked two ways. Number 3, our honorary patron, Tom Hanks, who has brought tremendous validity and exposure to our cause. I did dig out a letter he wrote to us early on the Playtone letterhead, Playtone being his company. Dear Sid, this is dated June the 6th, 2003. Dear Sid, sorry for the delay here from what we call the Playtone galaxy of stars, but is more often a black hole. Quickly, put my name on the James Fund letterhead as honorary patron. The billing is nice, and if that can attract attention, all the better. And a bit more, but how can I say the billing is nice, if that can attract attention, all the better? The amount of attention we've had from his name being on that letterhead has been extraordinary, so I'm very grateful to Tom Hanks. 4, the volunteers. In this room, if I was to ask each of you, how many hours do you put into the James Fund? I think we would be stunned at the, I don't know what the word is anymore, because you can't say man hours or man years, but person years perhaps. It's got to be not just thousands or 10,000s. So many of you volunteers have put in so much time as board members, as event organizers. I thank you. 5, donors. Thank you. I was going to bring my little package of cards to kind of show you. It used to be when someone made a donation to the James Fund, SickKids would send us a nice little card saying, so-and-so has made a donation to the James Fund, and you could then write them a thank you. But after a while, I was spending a lot of time writing thank you letters, because everyone that came, I wrote a thank you letter. And after a while, SickKids tentatively asked me, would I mind if they no longer sent these cards to me? Because basically I had one person working full-time, this huge thousands of donations. So the donors to the James Fund, it has just been thrilling to have known the support, to see the generosity as people have got behind. And again and again, we would be completely stunned by not just the huge donations of $25,000, but a child who will give up Christmas presents and say, please just give the money to the James Fund. The media. I think our success in many ways has been due to a media who have not just, oh yeah, another gig, but who've got engaged in our story, who have told our story with compassion and integrity. Media people who have dared to be friends with our family, to cross that barrier, that professional barrier, and actually sit with us, to have James on their lap, to take the chance of getting to know a family dealing with impending death. And since James's death, I just cannot say enough for the sensitivity of our local media, how they have worked so hard to tell our story. Thank you. Number 7, you guys. I realize it's not just the Peterborough community, it extends beyond that. Our friends in Toronto, from the hospital, from across Ontario, I thank you. Your support of us while we were going through treatment and after James died has meant so much to us, and I think has enabled us to rise out of our grief and do the work we've been doing. Number 8, my sister Diana, for telling the story, for building the neuroblastoma community. And one thing that many might not think of, that I'm very grateful for, my wife and I would thank Diana for protecting our family. And to my family, to Pam, to Rebecca and Ben, who have paid a heavy price for allowing me to publicly share our unfolding story. I got a book out there. I never really got a sign off from Ben or Rebecca to say, do you mind if I write about these stories? And from Pam too, and it just kind of happened, and now it's out there. I do know that it's been very tough for them to have had the stories, the intimate details of our family life put in front of the world. And yet I know that without that story, without the authenticity, we never would have got beyond the first few $1,000. And finally, I knew I'd have trouble here. Number 10, I would like to thank my son James, who told us, you can't let cancer ruin your day. Thank you.
How can you top that? You can't. But on behalf of SickKids, I have a small token of our appreciation for this incredible milestone and for the joy and love that you continue to pour into the James Fund. Thank you so much to Pam and to Sid, and also to you, Diana, from us at SickKids. Thank you so much. So that concludes the formal part of our evening. I think now is the time to enjoy some fellowship, some more drinks and food, and thank you all for coming out and again celebrating this magnificent milestone. On behalf of all of us at SickKids and the James Fund, thank you so much.
You know, I want to just say something about another $5 million. We got invited to an event a long time ago at SickKids. It's a good story, isn't it? It's a great story. And have a seat. Yeah, have a seat. It's in my book, but they needed some representative of the cancer family world, and so we were invited to a check presentation by the Hilroy family, but they're not the Hilroy, that's their pencil. It's Roy Hill, got it? Backwards, Hill, Roy Hill. So the Roy Hill dynasty were donating $5 million to kid cancer at SickKids, and we were invited to go. And my kids were suitably behaved, crawling on the floor, banging the little chairs up and down, making a racket, being totally cute. And afterwards we got to meet the Roy Hill family, and the matriarch of the family got one of those amazing James hugs, which most of you know very well. But towards the end of it, the kids said, can we hold the check? And, well, we went over to someone and, okay. So the kids were kind of dashing around with this thing and commenting on, how come there's like, 8 zeros after this, Dad? And it is extraordinary that when we reach the 5 million mark, you get a sort of place on the donor wall, the recognition wall that SickKids in the big hallway. And James Fund is, thanks to the help of so many people and so many other neuroblastoma families, we've moved up until we're at the 5 million level. Guess where our plaque is at SickKids, what's it next to? It's next to the Roy Hill family, 5 million. And that's a complete coincidence, I gather. But, you know, if anyone's got any influence with the Roy Hill dynasty, can you tell them we've sort of caught up with them? Would they like to reset the bar again, donate another 5 million